More collagen means more youth. You might have joint pain, get injured frequently without much effort, or feel like you're aging faster than you should. All of that can be true and also avoidable if you pay more attention to a very important protein, collagen. At the age of 60, you produce half as much collagen as you did when you were 20. And unfortunately, this situation only gets worse as the years go by. But now there's good news. Just like you can do resistance exercise to increase your muscle mass, you can also boost other non-contractile proteins in your body, like collagen. You just need to know how to do it properly. And no, it doesn't just depend on taking collagen supplements or avoiding getting burned in the sun. Improving the balance between collagen synthesis and degradation will help prevent many injuries, reduce joint pain, increase your mobility, and make you look better. Yes, you've just discovered the key, reducing the degradation and increasing the synthesis of this amazing protein. So today we're going to see how the collagen synthesis process works and what we can do to speed it up. But first, what is collagen? Collagen is the biological framework of life, the cellular glue. Have you ever wondered why you're not just an amorphous puddle of cells on the floor? Because of collagen, the structural protein, by definition. And you already know that proteins are made up of amino acids, which are like the building blocks that make up the larger structure. These building blocks stick together to form groups of blocks, a few amino acids that we call peptides. And those peptides join together to form polypeptides, literally many peptides. Well, those polypeptides also join together to form different proteins and adopt different structures depending on the function that each protein performs. Some proteins are shaped like a globe and are said to have a globular structure, and others have more elongated fiber shapes, like muscle fiber, and are said to have a fibrillar structure. Since collagen serves to support very high mechanical tensions, we need a very resistant fibrillar protein here. If you're building a bridge, to keep it from collapsing, you need materials that can withstand a lot of tension and for a long time. Remember that collagen is in your joints, your tendons, and ligaments, structures that will endure great mechanical tension throughout your entire life. If you weigh 80 kilos, for example, and you hang to do a pull-up, your biceps tendon is withstanding a tension of 50 million pascals. Comparable to some industrial materials, it's like hanging 150 kilos from a structure whose effective section is the size of a large lentil, withstanding about 500 kilos per square centimeter. It's very strong. That's why nature gave it a triple helix braided structure. That is, the 3 amino acid chains it's made of are braided together, forming a triple helix. It's this braiding that gives the molecule its mechanical strength, which in turn organizes itself into much larger fibers that are very resistant to tension. I want you to quickly understand the scale of collagen. It's the most abundant protein in your body and makes up more than 30% of your total protein content. It's the second most abundant molecule, with the first being water. Its function is to create a matrix that supports the cells, the well-known extracellular matrix. Because your cells need support, a framework to exist in. Otherwise, they would just scatter all over the place. That support is the connective tissue, which connects everything together, okay? Its main component is collagen, but there are also other supporting proteins you might recognize, like elastin, fibronectin, and proteoglycans, right? Therefore, to put it simply, collagen is a protein that connects, supports, and resists. It connects, supports, and resists. And you should know that there are 28 types of collagen in vertebrates, but 90% of it is type 1, 3, and 2 collagen. And among them, the most well-known is type 2 collagen, partly because it's the one we have in our joints and the one that allows you to run and jump without pain. In the dermis, in the skin, type 1 predominates, as well as in bones, tendons, and the cornea. Type 3 is found in more elastic tissues, like blood vessels, lungs, but also in young skin. Careful, you might think that more collagen means better health, but that's not the case. We need to have very tight regulation of the collagen that's formed and the collagen that's removed, because if not, problems arise. For example, too much collagen buildup in the arteries can narrow them. On the other hand, when we have too little, the fatty plaques in the arteries are more likely to rupture. When a fatty atheroma plaque ruptures, it's bad news because it usually causes a clot and a heart attack. Malfunctioning collagen can cause osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as brittle bone disease. These are people who suffer constant fractures from minimal effort. They experience continuous dislocations due to hypermobility and have a higher risk of aneurysms. Or for example, scleroderma, an autoimmune disease where the fibroblasts don't stop working and collagen invades the entire body. So we want to increase collagen synthesis, yes, but we also want a reasonable balance between its synthesis and degradation. We want healthy collagen more than just a lot of collagen. Now, understanding the process of collagen production in your body isn't simple because it requires technical knowledge, but we'll summarize it as much as possible. First, we have to synthesize collagen from its building blocks. Remember the amino acids. Here we need a few other things, molecules like vitamin C, which seals those amino acids. Afterwards, those collagen molecules have to intertwine with each other in a very interesting process called cross-linking, to create collagen fibrils that will later join together to form bundles collagen fibers. The truly useful ones? Well, now we have the fibers ready to use, but now let's see what you can do to increase collagen synthesis on your own. Glycine, proline, and arginine. The stability of collagen depends on its triple helix superstructure, whose primary sequence is based on the repetition of glycine X and Y, where X is usually proline and Y is usually hydroxyproline or arginine. These amino acids, in situations where there is a lot of tissue repair or an excess of collagen degradation, go from being non-essential to conditionally essential. That is, we need them in greater amounts so that the fibroblast continues working efficiently and generating good quality collagen. You might say it's difficult to get enough from the Western diet. If you want to optimize your processes, yes, but why? We mostly eat muscle, rarely the active parts of animals. Historically, humans used to consume the whole animal from snout to tail. This is something that your great-grandparents or grandparents probably did. Today we throw away skin, cartilage, and tendons. We only keep the lean muscle. And since glycine is the most limiting amino acid in this process, we can reinforce it in the diet with both plant sources: sesame seeds, spinach, legumes, and animal sources, cuts with connective tissue like oxtail, cheeks, and fish skin. Gelatin, which is basically glycine or bone broth. Of course, there is also glycine supplementation, which also has other benefits. I'll summarize them for you in this video. Second, generate mechanical tension. Strength training. Training is the best stimulus for collagen synthesis. Remember what we said before. Collagen is a protein that provides support, but it's also sensitive to mechanical tension. When will your body create more collagen? When you need to withstand more mechanical tension. And that's the challenge of physical exercise, but especially strength training. Also, let's go further. Specifically, focusing on the eccentric phase of the exercise further improves collagen synthesis because it demands more from it. It achieves this by breaking down old and weak collagen fibers, making way for new collagen fibers. This is called improving collagen turnover or renewal, and it's the best thing you can do to improve its quality. That's why, when you train, you should pay attention to the eccentric phase and not just let the weight drop when you're lowering the dumbbell, for example, during a biceps curl. Remember that when you do this, you're not only building muscle, you're strengthening your biceps tendon, preventing injuries, and making the movement more efficient overall. Let's continue with vitamin C. One of the most important micronutrients in collagen biosynthesis is vitamin C. Surely, whenever you've bought collagen, it's always associated with vitamin C. But why is that? Well, it's because vitamin C, ascorbic acid, allows two amino acids called lysine and proline to be incorporated into the collagen molecule by being hydroxylated. Biochemically, we could say this is like sealing the molecule. Therefore, without vitamin C, there is no collagen. A good way to get vitamin C is by including citrus fruits and cruciferous vegetables in your daily diet. That's all it takes. Will taking mega doses of vitamin C help increase collagen synthesis? No. And there are studies that say vitamin C in megadoses becomes pro-oxidant and might not be harmless. I don't recommend it. Trace nutrients. Besides vitamin C, you need copper and manganese for the final cross-linking that gives strength to the fiber. And the enzyme that converts proline to hydroxyproline needs ferrous iron to work. That's why patients with chronic iron deficiency anemia, lack of iron, have very thin, very fragile skin, poor wound healing, hair loss, and brittle nails. Enough energy. A very basic mistake we make when we have an injury or when we're sick and can't train is drastically reducing the amount of calories we consume. We do this, of course, because we don't want to gain a lot of fat during that period when we're training less, but also because when we exercise less, our appetite naturally decreases. Sure, but drastically reducing energy intake is going to compromise collagen synthesis, and that will delay the recovery from the injury. Just like building muscle requires a lot of energy, building collagen also requires it. If you're on a severe calorie deficit, have an untreated eating disorder, or you're just burning a huge amount, you're putting yourself at serious risk of injury. Green tea. Catechins and other bioactive compounds present in tea have been shown to decrease the activity of enzymes that break down collagen. These are the so-called metalloproteinases, MMPs. Here, therefore, we're not talking about increasing it, but rather the opposite, reducing degradation. Including 1 or 2 cups of green tea or matcha tea daily can be a good habit for your collagen. Whey protein. We already discussed whey protein at length in this video. Just as it helps improve muscle protein synthesis when you take it and do strength training, it also helps synthesize more collagen and improve the strength of ligaments and tendons. There are key amino acids in collagen synthesis. Now you know, lysine and proline, which of course are also present in whey, so all whey protein does is provide a sufficient pool of amino acids for your body, your fibroblasts, to use and synthesize collagen. Turmeric. Keeping inflammation levels in check is very important to avoid further collagen degradation. In this sense, a good turmeric supplement can help you. Not all of them are good. If you want, we can review it in another video. Now, countless lifestyle-related factors decrease collagen synthesis. I'm going to tell you the most important ones so you can avoid them, because it's just as important to follow the previous tips that improve your collagen as it is to avoid these that directly destroy it. And the first and almost most important one is tobacco. Different substances in tobacco greatly decrease the synthesis of type 1 and 3 collagen in your skin, while increasing the synthesis of so-called metalloproteinases, the proteins that break down collagen. In other words, less is synthesized and more is destroyed. The result? More wrinkled, dehydrated, and duller, sallow skin. Needless to say, just look at any chronic smoker. The use of NSAIDs. Acute inflammation has a very clear role in your body. It helps to repair a problem. It's your body's way of saying, something is happening here, pay attention. What happens if you get a sprain or any other injury and then immediately load up on NSAIDs like ibuprofen or naproxen? That acute inflammation gets suppressed. And yes, that will mean less discomfort, of course, but also less collagen synthesis in the damaged structure. Not only that, the likelihood of injuring that area again increases with the use of NSAIDs, and the recovery time also increases considerably. So it's not a good idea, except in specific moments of intense pain that interfere with your life, to systematically take NSAIDs when you have an injury. We need a little bit of inflammation to stimulate collagen synthesis. Repair involves pain, redness, swelling, and heat. Cardinal signs of inflammation that Celso defined 2,000 years ago. Chronic overexposure to the sun. Moderate and controlled sun exposure has many benefits for our mood, vitamin D synthesis, and even melatonin synthesis. However, overexposure, or the typical pattern of lying in the sun for 5 hours straight during the summer, is a disaster for the synthesis of type 1 and type 3 collagen in your skin. And it is one of the factors that, as has been proven, most decreases collagen synthesis, causing wrinkles, spots, and various skin alterations, without talking about oncology in this video. Inadequate training. When there is an imbalance between the power and explosiveness of your muscles and the resistance of your tendons and ligaments, the latter can be easily injured. There are ways to strengthen your connective tissue and increase the number of collagen fibers. I'm talking about training. We've already seen one. Strength training with an emphasis on the eccentric phase of the movement. But the other one, pay close attention, is isometric work. Isometric work generates sustained mechanical load on the tennis site, the tendon cell, which physically deforms. This activates intracellular signaling cascades that upregulate factors like transforming growth factor, beta, or insulin-like growth factor, 1. These are cytokines that go to the nucleus and transcribe procollagen genes. This also minimizes the shear stress generated by dynamic isotonic exercise. which can commonly damage collagen fibers if the loads are not appropriate. Therefore, it's a good idea to include isometric exercises, especially if you have osteoarticular problems, but there are also drugs that are harmful to collagen, such as anabolic androgenic steroids. These illegal drugs, when used for athletic purposes, create a disconnect between strength and structure. They cause muscle hypertrophy at a speed that the tendon can't keep up with. The result is an increase in strength production that isn't matched by the tendon's capacity. It's like putting a Ferrari engine in a Civic. And don't they make the tendons grow? It seems like they do, but they grow in a dysplastic way. It's a tendon with a weaker, more chaotic structure. And where do injuries usually happen? At the myotendinous junction, where the muscle and tendon connect. That's why tendon avulsions are so common. Detachment of the muscle from the tendon in users who chronically use steroids. Be careful with this. Other key drugs are corticosteroids. Corticosteroids are drugs that are used in a wide range of diseases, from asthma to autoimmune disorders to cancer or musculoskeletal problems. But pay attention to this. In athletes who repeatedly use corticosteroid injections for tendinitis, a painful shoulder, or another injury and keep training, this is a problem. Why? Well, because their anti-inflammatory action will make you feel much less pain, leading you to train at your usual intensity or even at a higher intensity. But your tissues are more prone to injury than before because of that anti-inflammatory effect due to its inhibitory effect on collagen synthesis. Therefore, you're putting your collagen in a vulnerable situation. Be careful. Excess caffeine. While 1 or 2 coffees a day won't be a problem, too much caffeine can decrease collagen synthesis. This is especially concerning in athletes who consume excessive amounts, which is very common. Why? Well, because it's often used as an ergogenic substance to improve performance, not just to wake you up. If we add a lot of training and a lot of caffeine, then the risk of injury skyrockets. If we add little sleep, a lot of stress, and a lot of caffeine. Imagine that unfortunately it's also a very typical combination among athletes. Yes, sometimes the reason why we get injured is more obvious than we think, but we don't want to see it. Chronic stress. Yes. Collagen synthesis in your connective tissue decreases. The synthesis of collagen and other proteins in your body is a balancing process between building and breaking down, anabolism and catabolism. Repair processes usually occur during periods of rest. Anabolism. There's a predominance of the parasympathetic system and no perceived threat. That's why a situation of stress or chronic anxiety will make both muscle hypertrophy and injury recovery much more difficult. Dehydration. If there's a molecule more abundant in your body than collagen, it's water. Your connective tissue is loaded with water, and both your skin and your tendons, intervertebral discs, ligaments, and fascia suffer a lot when you're dehydrated. Or rather, they become more vulnerable. Stay properly hydrated, especially in very hot climates. Chronic inflammation. While acute inflammation can help bring nutrients and immune cells to the injured area, chronic inflammation wears down and reduces the production of type 2 collagen present in your joints. Remember that metabolic diseases, such as type 2 diabetes, obesity, or metabolic syndrome, usually come with elevated levels of chronic inflammation. So this population is more prone to injuries and tendinopathies. In fact, I would say that keeping a healthy metabolism is the first step to maintaining healthy joints, tendons, and ligaments. Of course, this has to do with the fact that this population has more subjective complaints of joint pain. They make them move less, which is linked to a sedentary lifestyle. Collagen is a protein that supports, connects, and resists. Remember, pay attention to the last verb, to resist. If your lifestyle doesn't pose any mechanical challenge for your body, for your collagen, then your body won't feel the need to produce more of it. If your body is used to producing little collagen, you also can't start training like crazy just because you're tired of being out of shape, got motivated by 3 videos, and now want to run 100 kilometers a week. What does this lead to? Guess what? Injuries. No one can skip the principle of progressive overload. You need progression in your training so that your connective tissue can adapt to the load. If you're a weekend warrior, you'll end up getting injured. Too few calories and too little protein. Eating too little for a long enough time really affects collagen synthesis. Be careful with extreme diets combined with extreme training routines, like the protein-sparing modified fast diet or diets based on meal replacements, because they're a perfect recipe for injury. On the other hand, low-protein diets not only decrease collagen synthesis, but also alter its structure and make it harder for collagen crosslinks to form. which was the process by which collagen formed fibrils and fibers with high tensile strength. The result? Low-protein diets lead to less collagen and lower quality collagen. And I'll open another topic here, since insulin facilitates collagen synthesis. Ketogenic diets don't seem to be the best long-term option for recovering from an injury. They weaken not only the bone, but also collagen. Lastly, collagen diseases. We've talked a little about them. There are literally hundreds of conditions that involve an alteration in the production of this protein. Dermatomyositis, psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, lupus, and many others. Obviously, this video isn't about detailing them, but it's something that's seen fairly often in medicine. And that's it for today's video. I hope it has given you a much deeper understanding of collagen. There is a lot you can do to protect this protein in your body. If you want us to help you, whether it's with an endocrinology medical consultation, personalized nutrition advice, or personal training, leave your information here and we'll contact you as soon as possible. Big hug. Thanks for your attention. See you in the next video. Keep empowering yourself.